Welcome to Healing with Ketamine. I am your host, Dr. Cassius Drake, the co-founder and medical director of the Drake Center for Transformative Healing, a new and cutting-edge mental health facility located in Franklin, Michigan. You may have heard about ketamine, psychedelics, and their impacts on healing, personal growth, and transformation. It's been our honor and experience to use these new techniques in our practice. And I'd like to share with you today some of our insights on how do psychedelics help heal? What is the role of a psychedelic in healing? What's happening there? There's a lot of news articles, and you may hear stories about people overcoming past trauma, depression, anxiety. What is happening there? How are these things working? And how are we using these things at the Drake Center? I think to answer that question, we have to begin by, what do we mean by healing? What is healing? As a physician, I initially learned to become a healer by treating the body and treating disease and illness on a physical level, the most basic level of healing. As we know, people need healing on a physical level. Sometimes we need healing on a mental level, on an emotional level, sometimes on a spiritual level. In my work as an emergency room physician, which I did for 20 years, in our efforts to treat physical illness, I often found that patients were suffering from things that went sometimes beyond the physical. Treating a sprained ankle, or even an appendicitis, or even a heart attack, even the profoundest, intense physical diseases had treatments. And then there were some things that just never seemed to get better for people. Migraines, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory diseases, chronic diseases that were very painful that people could manage, but they never seemed to get over. In my journey as a healer, as an ER doctor, I began to question that, and I began to ask, well, what else is going on here? Is there something else that's happening with these people? And it turned out that the thing that was being missed was the emotional side. And so someone who is suffering from a migraine might be actually have some pent up frustration or stress as the trigger for that migraine, or someone suffering from IBS, for example, may have some underlying anxiety that's fueling that IBS. And if you never do anything about that, then you never really make any progress. And so I began to speak to people about that, and this was my progression as a healer, was to begin to raise awareness of people of the connection between their physical state and their emotional state. And this was helpful. This was better than just take a pill for your migraine. But even then, people needed something else to do with that. It's not enough to tell someone that you have frustration and that's why you have a migraine. You needed to be able to give someone something to do with that frustration. And that opened a door into a different area of healing. How do you deal with frustration? You deal with that by mental techniques, by meditation, by mindfulness, by connecting with higher order concepts, with connecting with the ideas that things will just be okay, or trust or faith, as treatments for that frustration, or treatments for that anxiety. For example, if someone IBS is flaring up because there's uncertainty at work, maybe there's pending layoffs, and they have that worry, what can you do with that? You can take medication. That doesn't cure the situation. Or you can use other means of finding a way to be at peace in challenging situations. Sometimes people would find that in a spiritual way, by having faith that things might just be okay, for example. And these are adequate solutions. But as you may imagine, in the ER, that's sort of hard to do. Many people find it hard to make that sort of leap into trusting when things don't look right. And I endeavor to hone techniques to help people to understand those things. And during the course of my practice, we managed to do that. But we found that it took a really long time to get people to that place. And it would be really nice if there were a way to bridge that gap or make that leap in a quicker way. Thus enters psychedelics. So psychedelics play that role of helping people make that leap from one emotional state to another. And it really enhances the entire healing process by catalyzing that transformative change. In our practice at the Drake Center, when we're treating patients with depression, anxiety, PTSD, the role that the psychedelic or the ketamine is playing in those situations is when people are suffering from fear, for example. Within the psychedelic space, within a dissociative state, people have experiences of transcendent peace, for example, or acceptance. And this ends up being the medicine for those heavy emotional states that they found themselves unable to transcend without it. We've had a number of patients who present with PTSD, for example. And how do we heal from that? How do you heal from past trauma? How do you heal from witnessing terrible things that have an impact on you? It's one thing to tell somebody, well, that traumatic thing is over, but in their mind, it's still happening, just like it was yesterday. And within a dissociative state, we find that patients often have, for the first time in a long time, the feeling of being out of that space, for finally having peace in a moment, for finally realizing that that thing is not actually happening right now. And in that moment, people find themselves able to just breathe and be for a moment. This can be transformative. It can enable people to see their situation from a different emotional window, to see it differently from this thing is happening to me right now to, oh, that's not happening right now. And I'm still here. And who am I now on the other side of that? We've had a number of patients who have reached that awareness and been able to walk forward into a new way of being and into a new life. In my own experience in this work, both personally and professionally, I have had to use this for myself. Even myself, I've faced loss and needed transcendent healing. I faced the loss of a sibling to suicide, a very heavy loss. And all of the tools that I had to try to deal with that all fell short of enabling me to get past that moment when I'd first heard that news. And it was only within a psychedelic experience that I found myself able to disconnect from that feeling of it's happening right now, to be in a place of, yes, that happened. And yes, I'm still here. And yes, I still live and breathe. And there's still life and love for me to give. Before that experience, I wasn't able to say that way. Just the thought of it would put me into fight or flight. And I would feel it in my body as soon as I even thought about it. But on the other side of that experience, I found myself able to think about it and to have not peace with it, but acceptance. Acceptance that life goes on and I'm still here. We describe this in our program as the way of the butterfly, which is to see things from a transformative perspective. As a butterfly emerges from a chrysalis as a new being, entering as a caterpillar, dissolving into nothingness and emerging into something new and beautiful. Its experience of life on the other side of that transformation is utterly different than it was as a caterpillar. A butterfly has wings, a caterpillar moves on legs. Butterflies drink nectar from flowers, caterpillars eat from leaves. The way that it experiences life is entirely different. Its foundational beliefs are different. This is what happens within psychedelic experiences or the dissociative states of ketamine or other psychedelics. We get plugged into a different emotional state, one that can be persistent, one that can be remembered and used as an anchor for life moving forward. This is the transcendent properties of psychedelics, is once connected with this emotional state, you now have a new foundation to stand on. I can remember my foundation of loss, and this happened to me. Or I can stand in a new place of, yes, and I am still here, and there is still love to give and life to share. And so I say yes to that, and I engage with this as my purpose. This is a place I can stand in on the other side of a psychedelic treatment. This is a place we've seen many of our patients be able to reach. And within our process of guidance and integration and support, we support our patients in reaching these states of higher insight and consciousness which support them moving forward. It's important that this is done with guidance. It's important that the people who are doing this work with you have been there themselves and can be wise and experienced guides on that journey. We feel at the Drake Center that this is our primary purpose and what we endeavor to do on a daily basis. Every day, as when I do this work now, I am grateful. As an ER doctor for 20 years, I saved a lot of lives, a lot of physical lives. And no one ever said thank you the way they do now. Today, when we work with patients and they reach those new experiences and they go off in their lives in a different place, we feel that we've really helped and supported them and given them something that will last long-term and support them ongoing in their lives. We don't advocate for Band-Aid treatments or short-term fixes. We look for deep and transformative change to open the door to wholeness, to healing, and to a new way of being. And we invite you, if this resonates with you, to seek us out and to begin this journey for yourself. And we thank you for your time and your attention. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.